4, 3, 2, 1. Yay! All right. Good evening, everybody. It's Monday night. Ron Morales here with the Monday Night Roundup. Right now, we are going to be having a special broadcast, basically, to talk about what's been going on lately with the state of this nation right now, with the SCOTUS reversal of Roe versus Wade being overturned recently, along with a bunch of other things. But before I get started, just want to make note: my show is available for all candidates. Anybody who wants to join me and join the chat about the current issues, if you want to jump on, please email me, Ryan at Morales for Florida. I could add you into the rotation. I'm here to help Democrats get the word out about their platform. We might not always agree with our guests, but, we bring people on with contrasting views as well as similar views to make sure that we really learn about everybody and figure out ways to compromise and work together. It's all about basically moving the needle forward and really making a better society. So again, if you want to be part of the show, email me, Ryan at Morales for Florida. In the meanwhile, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, share, do all those fun things that we need. And we're going to get the show on the road. So this evening, this is Monday, June 27th. We have the amazing Rebekah Jones, who is the Forbes Tech Person of the Year 2020. She is also, the candidate for Florida's first congressional district, where Matt Gaetz is currently serving. She is a Florida scientist, a whistleblower, and a mother who risked it all to fight corruption. And Florida has a GOP problem, and Rebekah's been one of the few to live and tell about it and continue to fight this fight. So tonight we want to play catch up on the SCOTUS decision, where Roe versus Wade was just overturned by a 6-3 decision. We officially have a rogue Supreme Court sect of judges who are just pushing through their Federalist Society agenda. This is a dangerous time in our politics, and we need to find ways to protect our laws of the land, protect the middle class of being wiped out by the GOP, and stop the erosion of our democracy. So Rebekah, real quickly, just give us a quick intro about yourself. Let the viewers and myself know, what were you feeling when you heard this decision come down on Friday?
Yeah, so I think my story is kind of out there, and you put it quite well. I'm the Florida scientist and whistleblower who reluctantly came forward during COVID-19 when the DeSantis administration started lying to the public about the safety of reopening the state. I am a legally protected whistleblower now. It took me a year to get that. My case is still pending with the state after 2 years, when it's typically a 90-day process. And running for Congress against Matt Gaetz, like you said. So looking to take out more than one bad guy this November. Two birds, one stone. I remember a month ago, was it? God, the time just kind of all blends together now, when the leaked draft opinion came out. I think I wasn't so much as shocked that it was overturned. I think the two things that shocked me most, that it was 6-3 and not 5-4. And some of the language that was in the draft opinion that was not only dangerous, but derogatory towards women. Just flat out religious fanaticism, which I was like, wow, are they really going to just come out and say this like publicly? That's what we're doing now? Yeah, I guess it is. When we were talking, what is it now, 2022, 6 years ago, about the realisticness or lack thereof of A Handmaid's Tale, we said we started to see some of the same things that early on, Margaret Atwood would talk about. And I feel like we just, instead of taking baby steps, took a giant leap closer to it, because not only does this undo the right to terminate a pregnancy without any exemptions or protections for extreme circumstances like rape, incest, trafficking, or ectopic pregnancies, in which case the only treatment is a medical abortion. That's a medical term. But also in the very dangerous slope that it starts to lead us down with things like interracial marriage, with Loving v. Virginia, or the right to have birth control medication. And when we talk about things like Loving v. Virginia, which was the landmark case that legalized interracial marriage, there were a lot of things that were set as precedent after that as well, including the gay marriage ruling back in when was that, 14? I was still at LSU, so it had to be between 2012 and 2014. But I still remember the moment I found out about that. And the right for interracial couples, consequently, and gay couples to even adopt children was set in those precedents. If you have a legal right to marry, then you're entitled to all the rights and privileges that are afforded to those couples. You cannot discriminate against adoption practices because of sexual preference, or because of even marital status, or because you're an interracial. That was considered discrimination. And a lot of these protections are now just poof, gone.
Yeah, gone.
And it's scary. Mississippi, on the floor of their state legislature, were debating whether or not birth control were abortants, which it depends on the medical terminology, and whether or not IUDs, which are implanted devices, are abortants, and technically they are under that classification, and thus would be illegal. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, are we entering a place now where people in my own home state in Mississippi will be scanned to see if they have birth control inserts and be arrested if they do? We're not even talking about, ending terminations of pregnancies that could have been prevented if more, thoughtful choices had been made. We're now getting into the place where you don't even want people to stop getting pregnant. You don't want to prevent pregnancy, and you only want a certain section of the population to be able to adopt for all these unwanted children, because the foster care system is full of kids that nobody wants to adopt, and it's heartbreaking and it's terrible, but yet that's where we are. And it's gross. It's gross.
It's gross. It's simply gross. It should not even be the way, people to get into people's lives the way that these people are trying to get into, even by talking about the banning of sodomy and all these other things. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to sit there and be like, let me see your bunghole? Like, come on, that is just out of control.
Well, that and, sodomy, not just between men, but between husband and wife. Are we going to start regulating the types of sex you can have with your spouse?
Yeah,
I mean, I always joke, like, there's a handful of places where the government doesn't belong: in your bedroom, in your bathroom, in your genitals, and your reproductive areas. Like, government has no business there. If men want to stop abortions from happening, then they should, snip it and zip it, be quiet. And that would solve the problem. But it was never about terminating pregnancies. It was always about, fundamentally, whether or not women are equally capable and equally protected persons in the eyes of the United States, and we're not as it stands.
No, it really does suck. And it's crazy now that this whole overturning of Roe versus Wade, there's people scrambling right now, and it's basically putting up a big question of what's going to happen to abortions now in certain states. I know I'm hearing people in Missouri freaking out because they don't know they're going to get arrested for, basically performing a medical need for some of these people that have been scheduled for weeks or months that needed to get these things done. Now they're going to cause this huge influx of unwanted pregnancies that was not intentional, and people are not going to be able to do anything. So, what happens now? What do we do? Like, what do we do at a legal level? What do we do at a congressional level?
Well, at a legal level, there's not. I mean, it's gone to the highest court in the land, and the court has decided to do what it did. So at this point, the only legal federal way to deal with this is to codify Roe v. Wade into law, which means we need the House, the Senate, and the White House in order to do that. We technically hold all three of those at this point in time, but one man from West Virginia apparently doesn't think that women, autonomy or any of the other rights that disappear with this is important enough to suspend the filibuster. So once again, as they did with voting rights, women's rights and gay rights and interracial couples rights and everything else is just putting to the wayside. So an already rich dude from West Virginia can hold on to his power.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And then on top of it, you got Cinema as well, who's causing issues, who doesn't want to.
Well, I think she said she was on board this time with
Oh, was
it.
she? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's down to Manchin now. He's the only one who's, yeah. Um,
It's a sad
but
day for the USA. That's all I gotta say.
it's been a sad, I don't
Sad
know.
week.
It's been sad forever. I mean, we take, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. This is the fight, my grandparents had to fight, and now we're here with it again, and I'm sure in another 50 years, we might be here again. It just never stops. We cannot become complacent,
But I
and
mean, we're letting the theology basically take over our country. It's getting to be to the point where they're the minority. We know that, but they have the super majority in our court of the land taking over, putting these laws that are basically not what the majority of the people want. I mean, you see the polls come out. Over 63% of the people want this thing put back to place. It's just
yeah.
this is ridiculous. And
And that
people,
includes Republicans. The
yeah,
Republicans are pretty split
yeah,
among it as well because they
I,
might think that, no, I don't think it's right, but I also don't like the road that we're going down when the government starts deciding who can have families when and what under what conditions and who can adopt them and when. I mean, if it's a loving home, they should be able to adopt. If it's a woman who doesn't want to be pregnant at 5 weeks pregnant, she should not be forced to give birth to have somebody else's child. That's human trafficking. It's the worst kind of human trafficking. And it's cruel, and what's worse is that it's pandering to an incredibly shrinking base.
yeah.
If you can't get, if most Republicans are not okay with this, or at least more than half or a significant chunk, then what are you doing? Who do you think you're getting? The American Taliban? It's like that's the vote that you're going for now. And it's, yeah, I mean, well, Congress and the courts have always been made up of a overrepresentation of people as far as wealth goes. Most of our congressional leaders are millionaires, and most of our people are not. As far as education goes, most are highly educated or at least have some kind of degree, while the general population is not the case. It's elitist. It is oftentimes condescending and rude to those who lack legal backgrounds, which is not necessary to what they are doing. But yet we end up with a bunch of lawyers who go to basically a glorified vocational school to learn how to fight with other lawyers and not come up with solutions on how to move the needle, just how to stop things from moving forward. And that's why we have a Congress that just stops things from moving forward. And that has to stop.
Well, and I mean, that's the other thing too with a lot of these lawyers and judges that these people are basically manipulating to do things for them. If you understand or have you heard of the Federalist Society?
Yes.
I'm like, that's basically what we got going on. They're pushing their agenda, and Clarence and Ginny are probably two of the biggest leaders of that society pushing all this
Yep.
stuff. So
And DeSantis
I
as
know.
well.
Correct. DeSantis is part of that group. They had a meeting down in Mar-a-Lago recently behind closed doors. They kicked out all the press, everybody else. They couldn't let nobody in. You had to be part of the society. And basically what happened down at this meeting is this. They talked about all this, what they were going to do and how they were going to do it and how they needed all their help to make this happen. So this was very pre-planned, very strategic, very laid out. They knew what they were doing. They've laid this groundwork for years to make this happen. This was a big victory for them. And really, it's a disappointing, sad day for the United States because we've just let the minority put their ill will on the rest of the country. So, do you really think that they're going to continue? Because, I mean, funny enough, Virginia versus Loving would actually affect Clarence Thomas himself. So I don't get that one. Why he would even
specifically
put that.
omitted that when that
Yes.
was the one case he did not mention when referencing the precedents that could potentially be reviewed by this, even though it is fully within the
Full of,
purview of the president
oh,
that was said.
correct.
But
Of
he failed
exactly
to
what he said.
include that
Yep.
case. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be so interesting. So do you really think they're going to continue? I personally believe they are. I personally
The
think that they're
court,
going to.
yes, it's
Yeah.
absolutely going to continue down this path. And it's incredibly dangerous. And God, it sucks. It really sucks. I have literally been answering emails all week from mostly Democrats who are saying, I'm not giving another dollar to any Democrat because you guys, the Democrats, have fundraised off of trying to protect Roe for 50 years and you never did anything to do it. You never codified it into law. Any of the times that you had full control of all three branches, it never happened. And I am tired of giving money to a group that says they're going to fight this, fight this, fight this, and all they ever do is talk. And you know what I respond to those people? I'm like, you're right. I feel the exact same way, because when I had no money to give, I would overdraw my bank account and a $10 donation would become 40 because I get charged the $30 fee from my bank, because I was worried about these things happening, and we depended upon the Democrats to, be the last line of defense and do whatever it took legally to protect these things, and we failed.
I
And
personally think they just never thought that this would ever occur.
I think that's part of it as well. They never
I don't think they
realistically
really.
believed it was at
They,
risk, and it
yep.
still raised them a lot of money to run off of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sadly, that is part of the truth, but this is just nuts at this point. I mean, the credibility has gone through the toilet at this point right now for the Supreme Court. I know I've been seeing some of the numbers coming through, and I mean that they're as low as 25%. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm actually one of the more traditional constitutionalists who doesn't believe that the Supreme Court should be subject to a popularity contest, because that's not their job. They're not elected officials. But the way that the most recent 3 appointments were made also went against our traditional ways of appointing court justices. We eliminated the need for a 60-person Senate vote, which meant we did not get bipartisan candidates who we could trust for the Supreme Court not to be partial on these types of issues. They were allowed to change the Senate rules to make it a majority, but we for some reason won't do that. And I'm really frustrated with Democrats who are adhering to these procedural rules when so much is at stake. So much is law. And no, we don't want to get into a situation where, well, if we change this and then they get control again, what are they going to be able to do with it? It's like, well, they already changed it. They already did that. And they
didn't care
everything from us. So fight back. Do something, actually risk something for once. That's one of the biggest problems we have. We have nobody here who's willing to risk their seat or risk, re-election to do the right thing. And if you're not willing to do that, you don't belong there in the first place. You need to step aside, or you need to gut up and do the right thing and accept that you might lose, but at least something will move. And when you look at people like Manchin, that they are incapable of that. It's like, how much money do you need? How much power do you need? Even your buddy Nick Saban's like, dude, you need to protect voting rights. And he still didn't. It's like he could lose his election and still be rich and have as much influence and be able to do whatever he wants with his life, but he won't do it. And it just is like, but I guess when it's not your rights that are being taken away, it's a lot easier to feel that way, because with the Voting Rights Act, he was never going to risk losing anything by not protecting voting rights. And he's not risking losing anything by not protecting reproductive freedom. So why should he?
Yeah.
Those are the wrong type of candidates.
Oh, and that's the problem. These people don't realize that, and then they gerrymander things to go their way. So it doesn't matter how much you don't like them; they're still going to win no matter what. And knowing that this is a recent redistricting year here in the state of Florida, I mean that was one of the biggest issues we saw with DeSantis submitting his own version of his own map, which basically cut out all the black districts. To me,
and deeply concentrated the liberal voting power within those that remained. So like district, one of the districts sounds like blue plus 46, I think one of them is. And so it really put all of the liberal capital into super liberal districts and made everything else winnable for conservatives. Where I'm running, it is probably the least gerrymandered district in the state. Ironically, because we've always used either a natural or municipal boundary line for our district. It was the county line. And now they just moved it over to the closest highway that goes north-south and cut out, some of the area to the east. And so ours is pretty straightforward. But for some of these other ones, they went out of their way to make sure all liberal, representation was only in an 8 of 20 districts when we are a 50-50 state. And should be, 14 or 15, or let's say 12, and then some that are hyper competitive. But we don't
have that fair system.
That. Yeah. But
No,
I mean, then again, we could be mistaken because I'm beating Matt Gaetz here, and this was an area that Trump won by 30 points. So maybe we'll win some that people aren't counting on us winning. Or we'll
and that's
get
what
close enough with the work that we're doing on the ground in places like this that we'll be able to put in a new governor.
So how do we get people energized? You know, and I hate to say using this topic right now because this is an issue that people should get behind. I mean, look, if you're going to tell me the Democrats failed this, the Democrats failed that, I'm going to say, well, what the hell's the other choice? Because the other choice are the guys trying to take it away from you. So can we just at least focus on getting Democrats elected that actually want to help?
Yes.
You know,
And we're going to have a hard time getting Democrats reelected in those areas. Unfortunately, of course, the period to sign up to run has already passed. So there won't be any, new young faces jumping in at the last second. But we have a lot of candidates running for office across the state that are new to politics, like myself, who are doing this because they sense that, urgency and that necessity of stepping up. Maxwell Frost is another one to me that comes to mind. He's running for Val Demings' old seat, and there's a couple of other ones. Alec Pastrana is running in Stephanie Murphy's old seat, which was kind of split up. And then we have like Anthony Yance, who's running against Randy Fine. And so there are people out there who are passionate, energetic, new, and you can get behind, but don't expect the world to save itself, I guess. And, get out there and help save it yourself. And no, none of us are perfect. I'm sure that as human beings, we're all deeply and irredeemably flawed in some way or another. But as long as we're out there fighting for you and your life and your freedom, those are the people to get behind.
Now, knowing some of these solutions that you hear Democrats talking about, how do you feel about getting rid of the filibuster and packing the court? What are your thoughts on that?
Packing the court, I'm not so sure. Getting rid of the filibuster and then reestablishing the 60-vote Supreme Court rule would be incredibly important because we need to make sure that if you can't get a single member of an opposing party to vote for a Supreme Court justice, then that's not a justice that represents the people. So we need to restore that. But I think we should also start with impeachment inquiries into some of the justices who are sitting there. So it's not just about, we're going to expand it to 11 and then, add 2 liberal justices. It's we're going to deal with the fact that Clarence Thomas is a sexual predator who should have never been on the court in the first place, who, by the way, was nominated by a Democratic president, Bill Clinton, and we need to get rid of him. And he needs to be impeached. What's her name?
Ginny Thomas with her garbage too. With
I don't know. I feel weird about holding people responsible for their spouses, but he was deeply involved, and that's that's very problematic. His conversations with Ron DeSantis alone about the fake elector scheme that DeSantis came up with need to be fully investigated. And who's the really weird woman that they gave the glowing eyes to? Amy Coney Barrett.
Oh, yeah, that one
needs to be impeached. She's an illegitimate Supreme Court justice. All of these things need to be revisited on their own merits by themselves. Adding more people to it, that's just going to allow it to sway in an extreme direction in the future. It's about holding the people that we put there accountable and fixing mistakes by removing the people who should have never been put there in the first place. And yes, that also includes Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm like, get rid of Alito too because he's just terrible.
Alito's, Alito, but the circumstances around Barrett's and
Amy Cohen,
right, and Kavanaugh's appointments were extremely suspect, and those two need to be removed. And Thomas needs to be removed for a long line of, let's say, unethical
actions.
Yes. Behavior, including being member of a potential coup against the United States of America. But will that ever happen? Who knows? Because are Democrats going to be brave enough to say, you know what? No, this is bad. You did a bad thing. You tried to overturn a Democratic election. We're going to have a trial and you're done. I don't understand why that's so brazen. It's like, no,
Yeah.
that's done. You're done. You go away now. And maybe if you go away on your own, we won't throw you in prison for the last 3 years of your life. But
Oh, yeah, some of these guys just need to rot in prison and then rot in hell because they're just terrible. I mean, look, I've always talked about this corruption with these people, and then to hear what they're actually trying to plan coups and things just to take control. And I mean, why? I don't want this man as my president. He's terrible. He's a
control.
crook.
That's it.
Eh,
That's it. That's all that it is. It's control and power. It's not even necessarily about wealth for a lot of these people. It's the influence and
Yep.
the ability to do what you want with impunity.
You
DeSantis
know
is
that.
the worst possible example of that. And everything he did that's coming out about 2020, he is exaggeratingly doing it here in Florida because he anticipates being the nominee for the Republican Party in 2024 and will steal that
Mhm.
election if necessary. Why do people think he threw off the Florida numbers for congressional representatives so much? Because this next Congress will be the Congress that will be in charge during the 2024 election.
Mhm. Yep. So he wants to pack that in with as many of his own
Yes,
friends.
he does.
Oh, so yeah, no, I mean, really, we need to rally everybody up. We need to get people excited. We need to get people really just out to vote because our lives depend on it. DeSantis cannot continue. This is just terrible. And
Yeah.
and the way I see it too, I can't let Wilton Simpson win because he would, he basically completes DeSantis in his terror reign. So we want to make sure
They
that we
all
don't
do.
allow these things. Yeah, yeah, they're just crooks. They're just grifting off the system, and that's all they're doing. They're enriching themselves. When you see the contracts that they give each other or they give their best friends that all of a sudden pour money into their bank accounts and all this, like it's just unethical. There needs to be investigations, but
It's like
who's going
money
to invest?
laundering, but it's mostly legal because of how our
How
campaign
are,
finance laws are
well,
structured, and it's
well, not
ridiculous.
even that. Then once they're in office with the contracts that they're handing out to these people, which is why do you wonder why the budget all of a sudden ballooned up to $110 billion? There's no reason for that. There really isn't. I bet you we could cut through that. We could cut through all those contracts, and I bet you I'll cut off at least 2/3 of the budget just in BS contracts.
Well, there was a recent news story about how one Democratic candidate for Congress in Florida was part of one of those schemes, especially with the vaccine ordering. So
Oof.
Jared Moskowitz, who's been DeSantis's number two, and before that was Matt Gaetz's number two, and he's a Democratic candidate for Congress in Florida that Democrats have openly embraced. And a story broke just last week about how he was duped into this basically Ponzi scheme that funneled all this money to him and his buddies. And I was like, where is the evidence in this article that he was unaware?
Yeah. I mean, he
Why are you giving
basically.
him the benefit of the doubt? A person whose reputation is now marred by how he lies to people. I was like, it's like if we can't do better, then we have no leg to
But
stand on. It makes it very
look,
hard for people to come out for us.
look, I know people make mistakes. I know people do things in
Mm.
their past and all that stuff. But I mean, these people are just straight up grifting, and I mean, they're just getting away with it. And we're looking at this happening. We're saying, "Hey, look!" But meanwhile, everybody's like, "Yeah, no, nothing to see here. Continue moving." Like, no, that stuff cost us money. That cost the taxpayers money. It
Yes,
costs
it does.
everybody. It's
Yeah.
just stupid.
Failure
We could
to act
be.
during COVID cost us the state of Florida tremendously economically. And while DeSantis is out there lying about the COVID stats, he's also lying about how we did financially. I mean,
Oh
for
yeah.
unemployment during COVID, we were mediocre. I think we were number 34 in the country, which isn't terrible. It's not great. For poverty, we were adult poverty increased to the third most in the country in Florida during COVID-19, and child poverty increased the fourth most in
Oof.
across the whole country. So no, we did not do well either by cases and deaths or by economic standards, other than the people who got really freaking rich off of it. And it's just, if you can't just be honest and transparent, then you don't belong here. It's like if your policy fails and you just are trying to hide that from people, maybe you should change your freaking policy. That's what
Yeah,
you do.
seriously.
You reassess when you have new information. Say, oh, well, maybe this isn't working. We should try something different. Not, nope, digging in. We're just going to lie through our teeth and push through it because that costs lives. It costs people's livelihoods. I mean, we look at the housing crisis that we have in Florida. It's worse in Florida than any other state in the country. by
That's
leaps and
terrible.
bounds.
35%.
Orlando has the highest rental increase in the entire nation for like an urban area. People are just, and you know what? That's the worst part is that we talk about these things, these moments energizing people, but really it's just exhausting. It's like there's so much going on. And if you don't even know if you're going to be able to pay rent or if you're going to be able to go get groceries, it's really hard to care about these larger philosophical things. And I get that. As a climate scientist, it was my job to convince people that something that they can't see, that they feel is happening in the distant future in a distant land is important to them. And we need more people who can communicate how this is an immediate issue that ties into everything else out there so that we can tell people, look, we can't fix everything, but we're going to fight like hell to help you. And that's more than anybody else is doing.
No, and I mean, it's just crazy because, I mean, they're coming after everybody for no reason. Unless you're a white male, you're fine, you're safe. But, you, me as a Latino, my black friends, it's just crazy. My LGBTQ friend, all the LGBTQ people basically right now are a huge target for these people, and it's just crazy because
we fought that night. It's over.
Yeah, we thought we were done with this, and they're just
done. Like, we legalized gay marriage, and the country didn't burn in a giant hellfire pit. And people moved on. People weren't even really that upset about that one. They were like, they fought before. And then as soon as the decision came down, I was like, all right, move on. And
so, just in case, I do want to make a correction. Thomas was appointed by Bush, not Clinton.
Thomas?
Yeah,
I thought they had his hearings during Clinton. I thought it was 92.
And Clinton didn't come out until 94, I believe.
No, Clinton was definitely elected in 92.
We'll have to figure that one out. But either way.
No, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I need to correct myself because I don't like being wrong. But I could have swore that he was confirmed in 92, but maybe that was before the election. Okay, nope, it was 91. It was 91. Yeah. So you are correct. Bush. But he was 11 Democrats voted for him.
So thank you, Cage Maru 397 for that one.
You have corrected me. I was wrong. I thought it was 92. It was in fact 91. And he won with 41 Republicans and 11 Democrats.
Go figure. And then now we're dealing with that terrible, terrible choice. Terrible. So kudos to not blaming Clinton on that one.
Okay, Clinton, that was not your fault. My bad.
So now we know it's definitely a conservative add-on that got put in there by Mr. Bush himself, Senior, who was definitely one of our favorites. Not
in the grand scheme of awfulness, he's not on my list of top 3. So. I mean, you got Trump, you got Reagan. I mean, there's so many to pick from. So
there are, but it's funny now when you think of George Bush Jr. and you're like, he wasn't that bad.
That is a sad statement. I mean, and I went through Katrina on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, so for me, he was pretty bad. But yeah, I mean, we definitely did not know how low that bar could go at that time. So I mean, he was more dumb than anything. And
I think he was just too busy being a party boy.
Yeah, to do the job, but that is far different from actual malice, like Reagan, like Trump, and so it's in DeSantis, who may be the worst of them all. But I did see something that was quite inspiring the other day, and it was something I submitted in an op-ed recently. That said everything that you wanted good people in Germany to be doing in 1933, you should be doing right now.
Yeah.
And the Hitler references and everything can be so overplayed, over dramatized, inappropriately applied. But I did start the hashtag Kmart Hitler for Ron DeSantis thing. So
I remember that.
Yeah, we need to get that going. It hits all the right nerves for an egotistical maniac and psychopath like him. So,
I mean, it's so sad because honestly, like I remember when he first started, he wasn't this bad, and it just seems like he just found the right people to guide him in this direction, and it really sucks because
He did what he needed to do at every step that was most politically expedient, pandering to the Trump vote during the primary to pull in Trump, and when he was not even remotely close at first, with that ridiculous build the wall ad that he made
with the kid building the wall
with his children, which was brilliant. Oh my God, give the guy some credit to fluff Trump that way and pull him into a primary election he probably would not have gotten involved with.
Look, when he said don't monkey it up, that was just like,
you thought that would be it, but it wasn't.
No, it actually got him more with these people. They were like, yeah, and it's like, oh my God, no.
The first 2 years of it, he was actually seen as a very deliberate and measured governor. And frankly, and I said this, before everything happened, I was kind of neutral on the guy. I thought he was going to be crazy because of the crazy build the wall thing with his kids. But as far as environmental policy goes, he was quite progressive. And where other Republicans were wanting him to be more obstructionist, he was not. So we voted to restore voting rights to felons. And for the first 2 years, he seemed like he was not going to stand in the way. There was a lot of pressure and talk of, is DeSantis going to put a stop to this? And he was basically like, well, the people voted on it. But then I think he was always an evil monster and saw what Trump was able to get away with and realized that if he wanted to inherit that throne, he needed to do and say certain things to get himself to the top. I don't even think he believes half of what he says, but he knows that it works, and so he's doing it. This is a person that has no morals, no belief in higher, meaning or God or anything like that, because he's got a God complex and will just use whatever he can to stab as many people as he climbs his way up to the top. But I'm hoping that maybe Youngkin will give him a run for his money, because of the lesser of evils, that would definitely be him. And he's more charismatic and attractive and won in a state that's more difficult to win. So maybe Youngkin can knock him out if Trump doesn't do it before then.
I think they're going to eat each other alive. That's all that's going to happen. I think there's going to be a lot of that fighting between them because of that.
They have way too many psychopaths that want to be the head and will not settle for anything less than that are coming to a head. But if we don't have a viable person to challenge that at the next election, a person that we quickly and universally gather behind and rally for, we'll lose. Because as soon as they finish their eating their own, they're going to whip everybody in the line, as they always do, and say nobody's allowed to talk shit about our candidate, whoever it is, after the bloodbath. And they will do it. And so as long as we're there being steady heads, and working towards good, and we're not muddying each other up, then we can have a candidate who is not a part of that and can pull in all those people who saw the bloodbath and were like, I don't think I want to be a part of this anymore.
Yeah, well,
and I don't think that's right.
So. And my buddy over here telling us from Jersey that people love him there. But honestly, it's sad because people are only hearing the propaganda that they're spreading, not even realizing the truth, that he's actually not really been telling the truth. Everything has just been a lie, and it's all just propaganda, and he pays for a lot of that stuff to keep his name out there pretty good.
When I was in Maryland, people hated him. They actually called him Death DeSantis, which is hilarious because that was a moniker that was developed by a friend of mine, Dan Ohlfelder, who's now running for state attorney against Ashley Moody. I think that DeSantis' head would just explode when I win my seat for Congress and Dan Ohlfelder wins state attorney, and he has to answer to both of us and can't do a damn thing about it because he tried so hard to destroy both of our careers.
Oh, I don't know Dan's story, so I guess I'd have to hear that from him one of these days.
Oh, yes. Dan is the one who dressed up as Death and walked the beaches during the first spring break.
That I remember. That I know, but I'm like,
he tried to go after his law license. Destroy his he went to such an extreme to try to crush Dan. Yeah, it was sick. I'm not the only person that DeSantis has made personal strikes against, but like me, he's never been able to put a dent into Dan. So that's always good. And I'm all for anybody who's come out of the DeSantis debacle, stronger, better, and tougher for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all got targets on our backs right now as candidates. So I know, and last time I ran, I mean, I was a target mainly because of the crazy maniacs that were fans of Sabatini. And those are the people I was dealing with on my end, which were
Sorry.
yeah, basically the extreme of the
That guy's
extreme was
such
coming
a
out.
joke. He's so pathetic. It's like you gotta. I
And
don't know why
and
men get
he's
this thing
just
in their head.
basically he's like, I don't know if he's like that really bad wingman that people have. Like, he's like the hey spike, hey spike, hey spike, hey spike, hey spike, hey spike. Like, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Hey, hey spike, hey spike, hey spike.
It's just
I
such
just don't care.
obvious, like, desperation for relevance that you're kind of like, yeah,
So, and the worst thing
most
about it
people
is he
don't like
blocked
you,
me.
right? Like, you
Well,
do realize that.
he blocked me just because I told people he was from New York. He doesn't like when people find out he's from New York because he's one of these Republicans that's always like, oh, don't New York my Florida, blah blah blah. I mean, I'm like, bro, you were born there. What are you talking about? I'm
Hey,
like,
let's
you're
not
New
knock New
Yorker.
Yorkers too much. My husband's a New Yorker,
I'm a
so
New Yorker. I was born
yeah.
there too, so that's why I laugh at the guy because I called him out on that. I was like, bro, I was born there. You were born there. What is your issue? I'm like, that's the place you were born. We live in
Yeah.
Florida now. We call Florida home. Great. But there's no
Yeah,
reason to be
Florida
like,
is a state that is, I think, now predominantly occupied by people who were not born here. I think it's upwards. I think it's around half, if not exceeding
probably
half
more.
now.
Probably
Yep.
more.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
think so
this is
because
every state is a home for whoever wants to be there. I mean, I grew up in South Mississippi, but I don't want to spend my
look,
life
I
there.
look at it like this. I live in the United States. I'm an American. I'm in America. It doesn't matter what state I live in. To me, it's
Well,
all
now
the
it
same.
does for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of
I
sort
mean,
of,
you
right?
could drive through it across the border, and suddenly, you could be a criminal because you have a birth control implant. So we have
Oh,
to we're going to have like a green book of places that are safe for women to travel.
so I hear there's a lot of good places for camping. Hashtag camping. Apparently, that's the big deal.
Yes,
So,
my house
if,
is always open for anybody who needs to camp, and we won't discuss camping, and we won't, talk about it. We will never text about it, and if we do, we will be using secure applications. And I don't need to know even any details really about you or why you're camping. Just come stay with me. I have a spare bedroom, and you'll have to deal with my very rambunctious 4-year-old and my reclusive 13-year-old and my very friendly dog. But other than that, you're welcome to camp here anytime.
yeah, so that's actually a great campaign in case anybody is looking for any sort of help. So please feel free to look up that hashtag and make yourself familiar with some of these folks that are willing to help out people in need.
And for the love
So
of God, do not text or call these places without using a secure application like Signal. Don't use WhatsApp. That's owned by Facebook. I would not
yeah,
trust Facebook with security to save my life. But Signal is independently owned, has one of the most stellar reputations for not cooperating with police or even FBI investigations. So download the Signal app, and you won't have to worry about somebody tracking who you're calling or texting.
awesome. So
Sad that we now live in a world where I'm telling people if you need to call an abortion clinic, use a secure app that will not trace the call.
50 years of women's rights eroded in one swoop of a pen, basically,
Yep.
with a terrible, terrible, terrible decision, basically saying, oh, this wasn't meant to be because our forefathers didn't talk about this.
Yeah, our forefathers didn't allow women to vote either. So
Our forefathers owned slaves.
yep.
Like,
I mean, the
come on,
original
man.
Constitution, 3/5. Slaves were 3/5, but women were 0. We were still 0. We were not quite property, and we weren't
And
quite human.
you were lesser than human. So that
Yeah,
is terrible.
maybe we were 1/5. I don't
At
know.
this point,
They
at
didn't
this point,
even bother to address us.
at this point right now, the dog had more rights than you did at that point, and he probably got more of a vote than you did. So yeah,
Probably.
terrible. So welcome to the United States. I don't know
Well, we've
what
only
year
even
we're in
had the
right
right
now,
to
but
vote for the last 102 years. People seem to forget that, but
yeah,
yeah, I
no,
mean,
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, what year are we at right now? The clock keeps going backwards and just knocking things off the charts again. So it's insane. It really is. So
it shows you that
um,
you can't take your privileges and rights for granted because there's always some kind of organization in motion to try to take it from you.
correct. But as we all know, not voting has its set of consequences, and voting for the wrong people has its set of consequences. So,
Please
you
don't
know,
stay home. My district
No.
has 47,638 unregistered women who,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, we do. And we need to mobilize, and we need resources from the state party, from the national party, from anybody who's willing to chip in. We need volunteers to help get women to vote, because it could very well come down to women, the future of this country in 2022.
Yeah.
And we already lost. So let's not lose again.
Yeah, I know that's terrible. So, if most of you don't know, I actually wrote a book. It's up on Amazon. If you're a Kindle reader, you could read it for free. It's called "How to Derail the Trump Train." Funny enough, I wrote this back in 2019, and everything it says, it's coming true. I was not expecting this to be coming true. So there's a whole section I
You
talk
didn't think it
about.
was prophetic?
No, not at all. I was just basically saying, here's the worst that could happen if we let conservatives take control. And I started writing what the conservative utopia would look like, and it's coming true. I'm terrified. I'm scared.
That's essentially what Nazi Germany was trying to do.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And if you ever seen King in the High Castle, that show on Amazon, it's a great show. It just gives you a different overview. And if you kind of see some of the premises of that, it's basically what I'm seeing happening now. Like, we're starting to get this fascist authoritarianism, with DeSantis, with his new little, basically political police force that's, is going to come after us. They're going to try to do everything
He
they
already
can.
has one. They came after me. They're state police. They answer solely to him. The commissioner has to be responsible to him and his board, which is run majority by Republicans, with the exception of Nikki Fried and what would be you, assuming you take Nikki Fried's job. So, I mean, they already raided my house without a warrant and pointed, an AR-15 at my son's head, and he was 11 years old, and at my then 2.5-year-old daughter. So now he's got an elections police too that I'm sure. Oh God. Oh my God.
Yeah, election police. Exactly. Big
That
issue.
guy needs to be taken down a peg. He thinks he's such hot shit, but he's not.
And that's exactly it, dude.
Dopey, high-pitched, just bleh.
Look, and the worst thing is, what happens if I'm stuck working with him again? Like,
you better be fierce.
No, you know what? It's just a matter of doing my job, making sure I'm doing what I need to do, focusing what needs to be done, and not even paying attention to his political bullshit nonsense, because I got a mission, and it's basically clean my waters and take care of Florida.
A cabinet position that has an equal vote in a lot of the things that go on with the state, and that will require you to be unrelentingly fierce, the way that Nikki has, and it can be very lonely and probably very scary, because clearly the man is willing to point AR-15s at children to silence, insignificant critics like me. Yeah. So he's capable of much, much worse.
Yeah, he is. He is weak, and we got to make sure we take him down this November. I really, 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 really pray and hope, and praying is not one thing that I'm known for. So, yes, I pray and hope that women, that men, that LGBTQ, Black, Brown, Asian, I don't care who you are, what color, what it is that you do, but if you can vote, please vote and get these people out of there. Your lives are basically at stake right now. People are basically planning to move out of this country by the way that it's going. Canada's starting to look really warm to us.
Well, once Canada starts accepting Americans as political refugees, I guarantee you, because right now you still have to go through the normal application process, because they don't see Americans fleeing this situation as political refugees yet. Yes. But the second they change that,
there's going to be a lot of changes with people moving out. Yeah, it's just interesting, and it's sad because, people have been here for generations, and now all of a sudden to have these laws changed to a way where they can't be themselves. They can't be, they can't love who they want to love. They can't, make love the way they want to make love. It's just, this is crazy. You need protection.
Big government overreach to, maximum overdrive. It's like we talk about big government, and there's nothing more big government than making all of your private choices for you.
And it kills me, though, that they sit there and they're like, we're the freest state, or we are freedom this, freedom that. And I'm like, but freedom for who? It's not for everybody. you guys are basically cutting freedoms for others and then saying, yeah, we're the freest state. No, you're not.
You're free to die any way
Yeah,
you want. I mean, that's about it.
that's about it.
I mean, your local government doesn't have any say anymore because DeSantis overrid all local governments and jurisdictions when he decided that they can't do anything to protect their customers or their staff during COVID-19, and the whole issue of home rule being just stripped away. And then they went after solar, and you can't even be off the grid without having to pay a fee to Florida Power and Light in most places now. So, I mean, yeah, you're free to die. That's about it.
Meanwhile,
And even that's not free. Your family's going to be stuck with a big hospital bill. So
yeah, that's the other thing too. Yeah, great. They're so pro-life, but they're just not really pro-life. I don't get it. The
they're
only
pro
thing they
forced birth. They're pro
pro-fetus.
fighting women for existing, and it's
Pro-fighting others, because basically we are the others, and they find anything or everything to call us others and dehumanize us and make us feel like anything that we're anything less than they are, because for some reason they're better than us.
It's
And
entitlement. It's the
yeah,
worst, and that's another ironic thing is they talk about entitlement programs. There's no worse entitlement than believing that you should have control over other people's lives because you're right and they're wrong.
and the best has to be is that most of those people also depend on grants and free government money or government contracts that they plunder and go after and do all these things. And it's so interesting, but yet they're the ones that are like, oh, no, government is bad. Really? You have a government contract that pays you a lot of money and you're like, government is bad. Come on.
Yeah.
And then you don't want to pay taxes, but meanwhile, you're working a government job. Like, hello, how do you think things work? How do you think you get paid?
No,
Like,
don't get me wrong. I think their government can be very bad. I've taken on a very corrupt government, and it's been revealing to see the exact lengths that a corrupt politician will abuse his power to exact revenge against someone who's publicly, wounded him.
yeah,
So government absolutely can be bad and ineffective and deceitful. That's what Florida's government is. But when actual people run the government and not millionaires or people who are completely out of touch or only in power because they want power, then it works for us because it
yeah.
is us.
And
And,
that's exactly it. We need proper representation. And I hate to say it, we have way too many lawyers and way too many rich guys basically in control. And in Florida, that's a big problem.
yeah.
Because these guys are just getting richer and richer and richer. And then if they're not rich, they're the extreme folk like Sabatini and all those guys that are just super extreme and are like, screw this, we're going to ride this Trump thing and we're going to say everything he wants us to say. And we're going to probably say a 10 extra. So that way we get more people to come our way. And it's sad because these people really do say, okay, we like this. Let's go this route with this ding dong over here. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't get
I
it.
think it's for most people, it's about feeling noticed and heard, which
Inclusion.
isn't something that it's inclusion. And most people don't feel that in their day-to-day lives, especially at the type of jobs that people like
Well,
Sabatini Penis will try to make sure that there are out there. But, there's something to be said about connectedness, and that's not something that we can't do.
well,
We're
it's funny
perfectly
because like,
capable of making people feel seen. If we get rid of the, bitter in-party politics, we can invite everybody and be like, hey, you deserve a seat at this table too. Like in my area, young women, I'm like the only one who shows up to anything, because when we do show up, we're pretty much like the only ones there. Nobody wants to hear what we have to say. And that's not very welcoming. And, if
well,
we can do better with that.
and one of the issues that I see a lot with, with this whole Republican thing is that they have, not only do they want to feel like they're part of something, like you have different factions of these fanatics. You have the ones that are the go party, this is my team, ride or die, no matter what. I don't care what mistakes my team makes, I'm always going to ride my team. And then you have the submissive wife or spouse, as I like to call them, because you do have people that are married to each other, and the other one's just like, well, I don't want to start any problems. I just vote the way my husband tells me to vote. Or the way my wife tells me to vote, because I've seen that in many cases too. And then you talk to the other person and you're like, holy shit, they're back crazy. You're like, you can't even talk to them because you're like, wow, you're completely gone. But I really hate to say that, these people have taken this Christianity, evangelical Christianity thing to just a completely different level, and just, they're pushing their religious views on everybody. And if they really want to talk about freedom of religion, I mean, what's going to happen when we start having the Satanists and the Muslims and the Jewish and all these other religions say, hey, I want my time too, because if you guys are going to be getting time, we should be getting fair time too.
They'll just make that illegal too.
Welcome to the US of A, right?
Yep. It could just be, hey, everybody, why don't you, as long as everybody's a consenting adult, why don't you just mind your own business? I mean, that used to be the libertarian, small government viewpoint. It was like, as long as everyone's an adult and they're consenting, mind your own business. But
yeah, but it's not there anymore right now. And it's just even that, and even that with the libertarian views, now they've just gone more to the right end too, which sucks because it's like you guys are supposed to kind of be in the middle, but
or be like pro small government. That was the libertarian viewpoint. Is it was small government in all aspects. Social issues. They were like, if you want to smoke weed, if you want to drink, if you want to do shrooms, who's the government to tell you no? It's your body. Do what you want. They were also, because of that, pro-choice, and they were like, you know what? We don't care. They were for LGBT rights, but they also thought that the government should not provide any type of monetary support in any way.
Yeah, which is so interesting. Yeah, which is so interesting because some of them actually live off of that support. And I'm like, really? You're a libertarian, but you've been on welfare? And okay, cool. So, the hypocrisy with some people.
I was on welfare, when I was pregnant.
I mean, okay, we've all been, but we've all been there and stuff like that. And, we've all had our hard times, but it's interesting.
We don't go out and be like, man, welfare people are the grossest. It's like, yeah, I was on welfare. You can judge. You know what it's like to wait in a Medicaid line? Because I did. I had to go for like 3 straight days in a row just for my number to be called. It's like, it's not fun. And I was like 9 months pregnant. I had to pee a lot. And I was worried that if I went to the bathroom because I was this huge bulbous belly, they were going to call my number and I'd have to start all over again. So I was like ready to pee all the time in the welfare office. Like, I just need to eat today. And
but when you hear somebody who is a libertarian saying that we're there in the middle of that, you're like, okay, cool. Like, okay, that's.
I mean, I've paid back taxes more than I ever took 10 times over, and that's the idea. That was always the idea.
It's just a backup.
Help people, get through a tough time, and.
But some people, but whatever. It is what it is. With the libertarians, it's so interesting to me because it's like they're dependent on people being good people, and I'm just like, people are not good people. So what you guys think usually will.
Or they believe that we're all born equally into a fair world with equal opportunity, which is the biggest lie of them all.
Yeah, that one's no bueno. So it's going to be an hour that we're almost here. So I figured I'll give you your last minute and let us know what's up. Let people know how they could get a hold of you and, the good old stuff.
All right. So my website is RebekahJonesCampaign.com. My name is spelled the biblical way. So it's REBEKAH, JonesCampaign.com. And we're on Facebook with Rebekah Jones for Congress, and Instagram is the same. I still have my Geo Rebekah on TikTok. I'm still not on Twitter. Thanks to DeSantis for that one. But you can find me anyway. Our website has our mailing address, our phone number, which we answer. So if you are looking to get involved from anywhere in the state, and you've been making calls and can't get in touch, reach out to us. We'll help you get set up. Like, you can make calls. It doesn't matter. We need
where's the best place? And where's the best place for them to donate?
You can go to our website, and we have ActBlue, and we have another credit card servicer if you're not on ActBlue. And that's, again, RebekahJonesCampaign.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Rebekah, for a nice evening chat.
Yeah, I know. Such great topics. So happy.
I'm like, whoa. But, Roe versus Wade. Everybody needs to vote. We got to get everybody out to vote. That's basically our job right now, is to excite these people, get them ready to vote.
Well, I'm going to call dibs on a victory session where we can just smile and talk about how great things are, because I always seem to be the deliverer or subject to the bad news. And so I'm calling dibs on a good news session.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have one of those. I think August 24th will definitely be one of those days.
Sounds good.
So, all right, let me close things up. Thank you, everybody, for a good evening chat over here, Monday Night Roundup. We'll be doing this again on Friday morning with some additional guests. Once again, thank you to Rebekah Jones for, hanging out, talking to us. And yeah, God bless, good night, and cheers.